As a northeastern Italian female, like, I want to be right all the
time.
Like, don't get me wrong. I always want to be right, but
Sure.
I'm okay being wrong.
Yes. Welcome to the Coach 'em Up podcast. I'm here as always with Zach Zillner, and we are joined today with Sam Contorno. Am I saying your last name right?
Yes, you are.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Knocked it out of the park.
It means side dish, in case anyone was wondering.
Yeah.
My college nickname was mashed potatoes.
Wow.
Yeah. You
Coach
learn it in
Nash.
Italian one.
Okay.
Contorni.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Next time you go to a fancy Austin Italian restaurant, you'll see it.
I'm going to say, now what'll happen is like I nailed your last name, but I'll attempt to say that and I'll end up just saying your last name.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
So look, we know who you are. Your reputation precedes itself. But maybe not everyone listening or watching knows who you are. So Sam, tell us who you are and how you got here.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give you the short version of this first. I'm Sam Contorno. I'm the Associate Director of Applied Sports Science for the Texas football program. This is my second year going into the Texas football program. I spent a year in 2022 at the University of Maryland as their Director of Football Sports Science. And I spent the 5 years before that at Stanford University as the strength and conditioning coach with football and their coordinator of applied sports science before we even really knew what applied sports science was. So that was fun.
Excellent. What a stud, dude. That's a hell of a resume.
I just make it up as I go.
I love it. So, okay. We were talking off air and you had mentioned something about how you worked in private sector prior to your collegiate experience.
Yes.
So we have a good mix of coaches that are either in the collegiate setting or in high school settings and then also private sector. Can you talk a little bit about what the experience was like for you in private and then now working in the collegiate setting?
Yeah. And without going I won't go too much into the story, but I didn't play a college sport. I should have. I was recruited to play softball, completely burnt out of it at the time. So I wanted to go to school just to drink my face off and, attempt to go to med school.
Me and you both.
Clearly didn't work out.
College, am I right?
Chemistry because I went I went to a Drake concert.
Shout out drinking your face off. Yeah.
That's all you can do in upstate New York. So I did that. So when I started, I happened to get into a exercise science class, and I was like, this is really cool. I probably should have done this instead of what I just did for the last 4 years. Oops. And so none of my professors were strength coaches. So no one knew what that profession was. So they're like, you go into training and you get your master's in nutrition. I was like, okay, I guess that's what you do. And so that was my first experience in the exercise science field. And I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible at the private sector. You end up having 12 conversations that are the same conversation every hour.
Yeah.
That's what drove me insane. It'd be how was your day today? How was your weekend?
Getting into the weather,
it just
food.
By the end of it, or
How's the kids?
say there's a sports current event. You've talked about that sports current event 12 times. And I'm I just can't do this. I'm not nice enough. My face can't be what it's supposed to be to make this person happy. I just knew it wasn't the fit for me.
Yeah.
And the whole...
Where were you working? Was it a big box gym or was it...
It was New Canaan, Connecticut. So right next to Greenwich, Connecticut, Fairfield County,
okay.
The bougiest, people paid you to be their therapist. Nobody wanted to work out there.
They were checking the
you'd
box.
Stretch them for 15 minutes.
Oh,
and
no,
you'd
I
talk
can't do
about,
that.
Yeah, you'd talk about what Ferrari they drove here today, and the other one had to get serviced, and I sat on my $65,000 sunglasses, and did you see that Yankee game last night? And I'm
I was in the box seats with Steinbrenner.
Yeah, I had to do this 12 more times today. So it was the ultimate private gym experience, right?
Okay.
And then I started doing my master's in nutrition because I was okay, I could do private sector nutrition. I was no, I can't do that either. I am not nice enough. Even tried PT. And I was I have to touch that person's foot. I was I'm not doing that
out.
either. So
I'm out.
I checked off every box. I was I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do that. And then eventually we took the really hard left turn to strength and conditioning.
Can you blow Tim's mind with your degrees that you got?
Okay, so it sounds way cooler than it is.
Sounds awesome.
So my undergrad I got from Binghamton University. It was pre-med. It's molecular integrative neuroscience.
Jesus.
Right?
It
Isn't that cool?
was a bio, psych, and chemistry triple major.
What?
It was so much fun.
You said that was fun?
You'd take like 4 classes that were completely different, like a behavioral health class and an evolution class and a stress management class and like a genetics class, but you'd be learning the same thing from like 4 different like perspectives. And I think that's like what kind of like pushed me to sports science eventually. Like that's just how my brain was trained to think in college. Like I can't tell you a single fact from genetics because all of the alcohol has probably scrubbed that out of my brain by now. But like the ability to think like critically from like different perspectives, I think that's why like when I got into this and I started like developing the sports science interest, like that's kind of where that came from. And then my master's is in nutrition, but not in dietetics. It's actually in biochemistry, technically.
Interesting.
And then I'm getting a PhD in, it's technically human performance and innovation, but I'm doing like football practice periodization models. So I have no idea what that means either. That's why I said it like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
you're training, high level Joe Schmo in Connecticut.
yes.
Take us down the road of like kind of where you got today. So like you found out, hey, I don't like putting in the hours talking about the weather and where you ate last night. How did you find, upper level collegiate athletics?
Yeah. So funny story. So my brother ended up becoming the like football coach at my old high school. And I think this was like 2016. I had just taken my CSCS. I had like my personal trainer certification and stuff before that. And he called me one day, and he'd worked for UConn football in the past, so he's seen some like high level football.
Yeah.
And he called me one day. He's like, "Hey Sam, like our strength and conditioning coach quit." And this is Connecticut. This is a high school football team. Like it was like $1,000 stipend to like babysit high schoolers. And so I'm like, cool, I'll apply to that. Like that sounds cool. So I apply. I'm like all excited. I'm like, I know what I'm doing. Like I'm so good at this. And I find out later that I didn't get the job because they weren't sure if a woman can do it.
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa. So like 20
The fire is lit.
Yeah.
2016
Origin story begins.
Yeah, it's like my villain arc.
Let's freaking go.
And so from there, I was like, okay, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm going to apply to every single program in the country because you're not going to tell me that I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I was done with Connecticut anyway. I kind of wanted to like move on to something different. I just had no idea what it was. Like I still didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. I had no idea what strength and conditioning was. None. Like I really didn't. I did, but I didn't know what collegiate strength and conditioning entailed.
Yeah.
So I applied to every single internship in the country. I get denied from all of them because I have no exercise science background. To the point where like, I remember Ohio State football, you click like, do you have weight room experience? Like D1 weight room experience.
Yeah.
And when you say no and you hit submit, it like sends you an email saying like, sorry, you didn't get the, yeah, like big red, like X.
Let me go
like,
retake it again.
I'm like,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
shit, wrong answer. And so it was UCLA. I think I made it through the first stage, and this was their Olympic internship. Again, no idea what I'm getting into. Don't care about football versus Olympic. Like I didn't know the difference. And they had a video prompt, and it was record like why you want to be a strength coach, and then give me like some deadlift progressions and regressions. And so I'm sitting there on take 18, and I'm like, I want to be a strength coach because I'm passionate. And I'm like, so I'm like, all right, I'm done with this. So I hit play, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck about your deadlift progression. I'm like, I'm not going to answer your question, but I'm going to be the best strength coach in the country. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm like, but somebody needs to give me a chance. And I got it. I get there. They show me that video later, and I'm like, I'm the most embarrassing person ever. I cannot believe I let myself do that.
Worked.
But I got there.
Imagine being on the other side. You're watching this like deadlift. This is how I want deadlift. This is how I want deadlift. And then Sam's like, listen up.
Listen.
Give me a
So
chance.
we used to play a game where every time they say passionate, we'd take a shot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't say that word. But yeah, so I will forever appreciate that staff. Coach Lynn, he's out of the game now, but the best boss in the entire world. Like he ran an amazing department. Like I still keep in touch with all the people in that internship and on that staff. That was a great staff and a great operation. But I quit my job. I move across the country in my Jetta to LA. I'm
Hell
like,
yeah.
this seems cool.
Chill crow, windows down.
Yeah, I'm like, this is gonna be so cool. And I go in like day one, they're like, here's this mop the floor, and I'm like, the fuck did I sign up for? And it was the best experience. Like that was such a like comprehensive internship program. Like I look back on that now and I try to model mine after that because it gave me all the tools. Like it taught us everything. It made us, the stupid drills from like coaching while music is playing to just like, they put you in uncomfortable like situations where you had to be able to like recall stuff and like just a great learning experience. So from there, I ended up at Stanford because at that time, Stanford Olympic and football internships were combined. And at that time, there were no females in football. Like UCLA football wouldn't let women intern there. Back in the day.
That's wild.
Wild.
That's fucking
it's funny because
nuts.
You want to hear something? The head coach that was there, his sports scientist last year was one of my interns and she's a female. And I'm like, ha,
nice.
motherfucker. Like,
that's right. How the turntables.
Exactly. And so like, it was really interesting then because that just wasn't a thing. So I was like, if I go to Stanford, if I study my ass off and I win this internship, they can't tell me I can't work with football. And they even like, honestly, we were even getting into the season. They're like, Sam, I know you've been like the #1 intern, but like, in season, you have to go in the locker room. Like, we don't know if we could still do that. Dude. But I've gotten so lucky. I have worked at all places that have hired me because I'm good at my job.
Yeah.
And like Stanford never cared. The last thing I told Shaw, like when I left, when I was like going around saying goodbye to everyone, I was like, thank you so much for like never making me feel like I was here so you guys can write an article. Like
right.
they didn't give a shit if I was a female. They like literally just cared if I was good at my job. So like I'm like forever grateful for that place for just like letting me do my thing for 5 years.
Can I just dig into your personality a little bit? So
it's this.
Yeah. So but where does that come from? Do you have siblings?
I do.
Yeah. Where does the fuck you, you're not gonna say, like I'm gonna do this no matter what you say. Where does that come from?
I was raised that way.
Nice.
So Italian, Northeast, like my family's all from New York. I grew up right outside New York City, like diehard sports fans. Like there's something wrong with us. We're all unhinged and like I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
And so like my parents raised us that like we don't care what you do. You just need to do something that you love to do. Like,
yeah.
And like, you need to not care what people are going to say about you. Like, I've always been the small, undersized, like even playing softball. Like, I've always been that like underdog essentially. And so like their whole thing was like, give no fucks. Like, go be yourself, like regardless. Like, that's when like, I feel like I probably got the most praise as a kid is when I was just doing my own thing because I wasn't conforming. I wasn't doing like what anyone else expected. I was just off being like a weirdo and like left alone. So like they raised me to be that way. So I think that's like, it doesn't matter if you're a male or female in football. Like your personality is what matters. And if you can handle the shit that's said to you, if you can handle like the pressure, if you can handle dealing with the athletes, like it has nothing to do with gender. It has everything to do with personality. Like I've seen men not make it.
Totally.
So I think that like feisty New York, like, man, you moved to Texas and people are like, where are you from?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm like, stop calling me miss. Like, stop calling me ma'am. Like, I can't. Like, what is this? So I think that's helped for sure.
So you're, from me first meeting you at the conference till today, you're always yourself and you're authentic. And that's a topic that's just come up multiple times on the show, is being your authentic self and people being able to pick up on that. How much of you being you do you attribute to getting to where you're at?
I feel like that's how you are successful in anything, but like especially in coaching. Like if you are not authentic, these kids can sniff it out of you in a second.
Oh, yeah.
Like, especially in football, there's so much ego in a sport like that because it needs to be. Like, that's how that sport is played.
100%.
And if you come at people with that first or like an insecurity first, like it's going to take a long time for you to break through any barrier. Like, and I think it's easier as a female sometimes because there is no ego, right? Like, I didn't play college football. I'm not competing against anybody. I'm not gonna.
There's no like sizing up. Like,
There's no posturing in that regard.
Like I'm gonna go lift that 25-pound dumbbell over there because that's genetically about all I got.
That's like, just where we're at, motherfucker. Yeah.
I'm always like, you guys are always gonna be cleaning my squat max. Like that's just like how testosterone works. And so like, there's never been that battle. And so I think like, I actually think that's helpful. But I think if you are not authentic, like you are not going to get anywhere because people are going to see through that when it comes to coaching because like coaching is acting a little bit, right? Like when you have to speak to a group or something, like you have to like, you're authentic, but you still have to be able to deliver.
Turn it on.
You got to
turn on. You have to deliver what the product that you're selling essentially, right? Like if I'm talking about sports science and I don't know what I'm talking about, people are going to know that I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe
Straight
it's
up.
not because they don't know the like material, but like you can tell when someone's talking, they don't know what they're talking about.
Can I don't want to derail us too much,
I love this.
but
No, please.
So how do you toe the line between authenticity and showing up and being you, and then also having to turn it on? Because just in my experience, I've worked with coaches and seen people who it seems like it's always a performance.
Yeah.
And it always feels a little performative.
Yeah.
And I'm someone, I can't fucking, it's water and oil with me,
Yeah.
dude. I'm not, whatever you're selling.
Yeah.
Because that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
You're selling something.
Yeah.
So, but there is, to your point, when you're working particularly in a setting like fucking football where you've got
Yeah.
125 kids
Yeah.
or whatever on the team, you have to be able to unify and have a clear message. So how do you toe the line between authenticity as a person, as a coach?
Yeah.
And then also like, because there are days you got to just turn it on. You don't want to
Yeah.
fucking be there.
Yeah,
Right?
that's a great question. And I think it comes down to like your preparation for stuff, because at the end of the day, like if I get up and talk about something, like I have to make sure I know everything that I'm going to say. I think people like don't realize how much coaches have to like prepare for things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to, because you have to get into that like, not
Well, you would hope
personality,
so.
or like you would hope so. That like that presentation mode where you're like, if I'm going to talk to our head football coach, if I'm going to talk to our assistant football coaches, if you're going to give me 3 minutes with the team before the lift, like I have to make sure like I'm prepared.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's the balance for me, where like if you just hit me on any random day and ask me a question, or if the boys forget their catapult unit on any day, they're going to get the same Sam, because like I understand that no matter how I feel, no matter how tired I am, no matter how much I don't want to be there, I'm trying to set a standard. So like you have your list of standards in your head that like even if you don't feel like being a coach that day, like you're doing a disservice to your football program if you don't hold the standard.
Yeah.
But then like your preparation allows you to get up there and be the professional. Like you snap into your professional mode, where it's like if I have a 5 minute, 3 minute, fuck with these kids, like you have 45 seconds.
Right. Straight up. Yeah. Hell
You
yeah.
have a reel. You have basically a reel.
If you add a color, if you had a color or a picture of a car, you might get like a minute tops. And so if I don't deliver that perfectly, like I'm gonna see the
Yeah. Uh-huh.
kids
I'm
picking their
listening.
nose in the back row.
Looking at their
so
feet.
Like, exactly. So like you also have to prepare. And I feel like people don't realize that, because like people think coaching is easy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can get out there and be like motivating, but it's like you have to know exactly what to say.
Yeah.
You have to know exactly how to organize the group.
how to
you
say
have
it
to
and
know
how to
how to say
deliver
it,
it. Yeah.
how to get these kids to pick up on it. Because again, you're fighting for 5 seconds of attention span
Totally.
here or there. So it's like, how do you say it? So I think that's like the mix. It's like you're yourself, but you have your list of things you have to follow all the time, and then you prepare the way you need to prepare for like the things you have to execute.
So with coaches, like I assume you meet with the head coach, position coaches, all those types. Mm-hmm. Since sports science is such like a new thing, like most of these coaches coming up never had someone telling me about workload or too much or too less. Like, how have you navigated the waters of like what you present, what you don't present, and how do you give it in a way that they can digest it?
Yeah. So one of the best things one of our football coaches told me is he's like, I don't have time. I need to be a football coach. So I always think like, what information do they need to know to make the decision I need them to make for the next day? They don't necessarily need to know force plate information. They don't necessarily need to know Nordboard information, but they have to know catapult information usually, or they just need to know the notes that they need to know. So I send emails to everybody every single day, and they're really specific. And I always, to an annoying part, like whenever I like have a new piece of technology or I'm with a new staff, I always do a lot of education, and it's super basic. What is workload? What is a high speed yard? What is that? Like, what are I talk about 4 metrics. Do I look at 500 things that nobody cares about?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, I do. And nobody cares about them still, no matter how many times I look at them. Mm-hmm. But I have the 4 big things that I present on, and then I always do education on the front end, and everything I send out has a cheat sheet. And then whenever I can, like with these notes I send out, I always like to add context, because football is so contextual. And so like I could say, hey, the team didn't run a lot yesterday, but we did red zone. So that means they're not going to run a lot. So now coaches are like, okay, red zone, not a lot of running, like log that piece of information. Or, hey, like we did run a lot today, but that's okay. We did kickoff cover, and we did, punt cover, and we ran long routes. And they're going to be like, okay, like kickoff, punt, long routes, a lot of running.
Got it.
So like any way that I could add context to a situation, I will always find a way to like kind of teach them something just by having them read a note. So that's kind of how I try to do it, because you're getting to that point where in 5 years, all the head football coaches are going to be 32 years old and maybe have had a catapult, like if they played at some high level schools. But right now, like we're seeing the swing.
Yeah.
And we're lucky enough to have a football coach that has that NFL mindset, and he like loves sports science. But I've been to a lot of places where that's not the case. And you're how can I teach them? Like I'm constantly trying to like teach them, like coach them, like, hey, like this happened, but it happened because of this. So then that like feeds them the two pieces of information.
And with that, how do you like disseminate the information of what you give the athletes? So what are you willing to tell them? What stuff do you like kind of keep to yourself?
Yeah. So I like to teach these kids everything. Like you could actually probably ask half the kids questions. I bet they could tell you their Nordboard scores. I bet they could tell you their best force plate jump. I bet they could tell you like what the force plate measures. Like I want these kids to be like mini sport scientists. I want them to see their Nordboard score and be like, hey, it's usually this. I'm a little low today. Like I'm a little imbalanced today. Like, and have them go through the why is that. I think if you don't teach them like why you're using a piece of technology or what it does, they're not going to buy into it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if they know what it's doing, if they know what it's for, if they know like what a bad score is versus a good score, or like what that means when they have a bad score, they're going to try harder. And so I will show them anything. Like I'll have sit downs with them if they're like really into it and they want to see things further. Like I have a bunch of charts and like graphs in my office where they'll all come look. Like we have like a 40 conversion chart where like they love it. They're like, oh, how fast could I run? I'm like, yes.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Not that fast.
So they're basically taking like ownership of their own personal development.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I want them to. I want them to be able to go to the NFL and be those smug rookies that are like, I've been doing this. Yeah. Like this is my imbalance. Like this isn't even a good score. Like I want them to be those like snotty kids when they get to the NFL. Yeah. It's my dream.
So I want to finish your villain arc.
Yes.
So I rabbit holed us good.
You gotta get
but that was a fucking good rabbit hole.
That was fun.
So all right, you're telling everyone bye. You're telling them thank you for my time and judging you on your performance and nothing else.
Yes.
You're leaving Stanford.
Yes.
Now what?
Okay, so I wouldn't say it's a hard decision, but it's so funny how like life works out where like I thought I was never going to leave Stanford. I was like, man, it's year 5. You don't stay anywhere 5 years in strength and conditioning. That's a crazy long time. I'm like, no one's ever going to hire me. I'm a girl. I found the one place that would hire me. Like, could I do this anywhere else? And you start to like spiral that thought, right? Of course. I used to like, my name on my resume has been Sam forever because like I'd apply to places and they'd be like, Sam. I'm like, hey.
What's up, bro?
Yeah. Like, they got you on the phone, like, idiot. Like, I got you, fucker.
Exactly. Shout out Wagner College in like 2017. They were like, but like, can you power clean? I'm like, do you want to call David Shaw and Bryce Love and ask them if I could power clean? Like, it's crazy. The amount of like stuff like that that's happened in my career has been like crazy. So I was like at this point where I knew that I wanted to transition to sports science, and like that was a scary leap to make because you're going to be off of the 5 for football. And I'm thinking like, as a woman, like, is that going to, diminish my credibility if I'm not on the strength and conditioning staff anymore? Like, I didn't know, like, there was no blueprint for that. So you're kind of like, is this a jump that I should take, or is this a bad jump for my career? Like, I really don't know. Like, if I get off the staff, am I going to be like looked at as somebody that can handle like being a director or a coach? Yeah, exactly. And so like that made me nervous. So it was like trying to find the right situation. University of Maryland ended up calling. They had so much technology and like they weren't doing anything with it. So it was the perfect opportunity for me to go and try to like build something completely from the ground up. But I had all the pieces there for me to work with. So like I had catapults and 1080s and force plates and all that stuff. So like, but great situation. So it was like we had like this empty building that I could try to build whatever I wanted with. The cool part with Stanford is I feel like we did everything we could in the confines of what they gave us. Yeah. And we did some really cool shit. And then still only won 3 football games. So at the end of the day, nothing matters.
But I'm sure you're grateful for that experience.
So
I can look back on my career and the times where I didn't have the things I really needed or wanted. You have to get creative.
Yeah. And I would sell all my technology tomorrow if I could. I hate all of it.
I think it's valuable. Like everyone talks about like working with great teams, how valuable that is. I've worked with really good teams. And honestly, the teams I've learned the most from are the really bad teams. Because you can be in a room and be like, these are the qualities of losers.
Absolutely.
And if you want to keep losing, keep doing these things. And if you don't, let's switch gears.
You know when you have a good culture and
Correct.
You don't know that. Because when I got to Stanford, like it was a good culture.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like went in a certain direction.
And you see the things that happen, like the little things you give in with, and then boom.
Pick it out. It's like kind of crazy. And then you know, to come out, like to come to Texas, and like credit to Sark for this, because we have an unbelievable culture. And like, I don't know if I would have appreciated it enough had I not been at places where like maybe the culture wasn't this way. Like it's like everybody, it's like a fucking steam engine where everybody is like trying to be the best possible at their job so we can go win a national championship, and you like feel that, and that's a different feeling than I felt in any other building. And I forgot what the question was. I got on a roll.
Well, there's a reason, like
Relatable.
the like good and great teams, like the good and great teams, like keep winning at a high level, because like the standard there, it's like the underclassmen, that's all they know. And the upperclassmen, they're not going to lose that standard of operation. And it's just one of those things, like once it gets rolling, it's like a snowball. It's just like keeps going and going and going.
And that's like the hardest thing in college football too.
Getting it going.
It's like to win once is cool, but like to maintain that like product year after year after year, like that's like real coaching. Like how do you like continue to improve when you keep winning? We're on my villain arc. I remembered where we were. So
you get to Maryland, you got a bunch of cool shit now.
And I could do whatever I want with it. And I was like, this is cool. I was like, let me try to make this thing. Oh, that broke. Like, let me not make that thing.
Was there also a sense, because I'd imagine going from like not having the things to having the things, you got to learn all the things and how it all communicates.
Yes.
And that honestly gives me so much fucking anxiety.
You know
even
what?
just thinking about taking that on.
Yeah. But you know what the thing is with tech? Like you have to get your hands on it to learn how to use it.
Totally.
And the second you can like operate one thing and break one thing and get data flow from one thing, like now you know how to do everything else. And so I think that's the most important thing. People call me like, how do you become a sports scientist? I'm like, well, what's the closest piece of technology you could break? Is it your scale? Go break your scale. Like try to start logging data from something somewhere and like try to connect to Bluetooth from something somewhere. Like you want to be a sports scientist, disconnect everything in your house from Bluetooth and unplug it all, and now figure out how to get that shit working.
That's a really good place to start.
That's what my job is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like intermittent calls on customer service.
At you while you're doing.
Why isn't it working? My thing's not blinking. Yeah. What the hell? These things suck.
Literally, like, go set up lasers and try to time a football team.
Yeah, don't walk through this part.
Like,
okay,
do that.
Did.
Like, if you can coach and operate lasers, you could do any job in the world. Yeah.
I stay away from lasers.
Yeah.
Gotta fucking line
You're welcome.
up.
We have the new fancy Vault Smart Speed ones now that are cool. So
they are very cool. We got a nice presentation here the other day. Shout out Vald. Coach 'em Up is proud to be sponsored by Plyomat. Plyomat is a jump mat that measures ground contact times, vertical jump height, and reactive strength index.
Plyomat's trusted by over 750 coaches in 25 different countries.
It's something that you can use in training day in and day out to give immediate feedback and drive output and intent.
Plyomat's always in stock. When you order your Plyomat, you can get it within 1 to 3 business days and start your training immediately.
If you get a group of athletes challenging each other to jump higher, get off the ground quicker, it transforms that workout into a highly competitive, highly potent stimulus.
If you would like access to the best jump mat on the planet, use Coach 'em Up 5 to get 5% off at checkout.
Again, code Coach 'em Up 5 for 5% off. Come jump with us. Get a Plyomat.
The Coach 'em Up podcast is sponsored by Squat Wedgies. Tim, what are Squat Wedgies?
Squat Wedgies are an adjustable squat wedge, 7, 13, and 20 degrees.
It's big enough to elevate your whole foot and not just your heel.
Because it's rubber, it doesn't slide on surfaces.
It's 22 pounds, so it's durable and stable enough for even your biggest athletes.
There's a 90-day risk-free trial. The shipping is free, and
get 15% off Squat Wedgies with our discount code CoachEmUp15.
Coach 'em Up 15 for 15% off of the best squat wedge on the planet.
So at Maryland, you're breaking everything. How long did you think you were going to be at Maryland?
I thought I was going to be there 3 years.
Yeah.
Again, like first sports science job, I was like, okay, I'll spend the first year like really implementing my program. Second year, like maybe I'll try to like build a department, whatever. Like I had this, I say that like whatever, I had a 3-year plan written down on paper. But I gave myself 3 years. And then, you know, I liked what we did year one. And then we're prepping for the bowl, and I get a call from Tori Becton, and he's like, "Do you want to be a Longhorn?" I was like, "Yes, I would love to be a Longhorn."
Did you get your Jetta? We still have the Jetta?
She is still.
There we go.
You still got her.
I do still have her. The engine exploded last year when we had those 100-degree days.
Oh, sure, that'll do it.
She's kicking.
I'm worried about my Jeep right now. It's seen better days, so we'll see.
Yeah,
so
the Austin Heat.
You get the call. I can resonate with this. I feel like anyone will tell you if Texas calls you, you have to go.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter what you're doing, where you are.
Does not matter what you're doing.
So he calls you, pack up the Jetta.
Absolutely.
Speed down to Austin.
I tried doing one day with my mother, and that ended really terrible.
That's always a good bonding experience.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you get down to Austin. What was your first impressions about, the university, everything you had access to, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So funny story. So I presented at the Power Conference the year before I met you. First time I had ever been to Austin. This is the summer of 2022. And I kind of knew that staff because they were at Cal when I was at Stanford. So there was some mutual crossover. Didn't ever really work with them. Didn't really know them. I think I had met Beck once at a conference, but I presented this Power Conference. And Isaiah Gonzalez is like, hey, like, we'll give you a tour of the facility. I have a picture standing on the field at Texas, and I told my boss then, I was like, I'm going to work at Texas one day. I was like, this place is fucking sick. Like, you're standing in the stadium, and like, I've come from Stanford. They call that stadium the library because there's nobody there, and it's dead on.
I've never heard that.
Maryland is like, people in DC do not care about football. That's a third filled stadium the whole time. And then you're in the Big Ten, right? So you're going to Michigan, you're going to all these places. And so I'm standing in DKR, and like, you're just looking around, and you're like, there's 100,000 people that like are on your side when you run out of this tunnel. Like,
it's a weird feeling.
I have to be a part of that one day. Like, that's the pinnacle of college football. Like, I love sports for the beauty of sports. Yeah. Like, I'm a New York sports fan. Like, we love the like mystique and beauty that comes with sports. I think that's my favorite part of it. And like, you're standing there, you're just like, this is something I need to experience. Like, this is my career goal. It's not winning. Well, it is winning the national championship. Don't get me wrong. But it's like that feeling of like,
everyone's invested.
Yes, everyone is invested, and this is like how you create like the most elite football team humanly possible. And so like, I had this like weird feeling that I was going to work here one day. And so when he called me, and again, it wasn't the logo. Like, I wanted to work with people that I wanted to work with. Like, I knew that was my next step. Like, I knew I could really take it to the next level with like complete like innovation from all sides, and like having like a similar philosophy and working with people who are also trying to like drive the boat forward. But like, yeah, I mean, he called me, and I was like, how do I do that? I'm like, hook him.
I do this.
I'm going to keep my hands like this the whole drive.
It is funny. So being from Kansas, like, we just didn't like Texas.
Yeah.
'Cause everyone from Texas loves Texas.
Right.
And then when you finally get down here, you're like, okay, now I get it. Now when I wave at people, I just do that.
Well, I used to, so growing up in Tennessee, I would have friends from Texas, and one thing I learned about people from Texas that aren't in Texas, it's a lot like New Yorkers, where they want to tell you about how they're from Texas, and that's just their thing.
So
like,
I do the same thing now. I feel like I've been here 7 years, so I'm always like, Texas. I'm the biggest Austin salesman of all time. Like, here's where you need to go. Here's where you need to stay. Call me for this.
Love that.
And it's a fun time.
And you're from, but you're not from Boston.
Oh God, no.
No,
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Ooh, easy.
Yeah.
Nah, there's like our state split. Like, we're the New York side. We take that very personally.
I see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, sorry for any offense.
Yeah. I'll let it. I will say when you
I'll allow it.
when you leave the East Coast and you like run into someone from Boston, you're like, we're kind of the same, but like neither of us are going to admit that. Like,
Got it. See, the reason I ask is my girlfriend's from Boston, and so I'm
probably a little feisty.
She is.
Yeah.
Of course she is. Yes.
And so we'd meet and we'd give each other the like, we don't like each other, but also like,
I get it. We're one in the same.
little bit of
Y'all would
respect there.
definitely hit it off.
Until like someone put on a Yankee hat and then like there'd be like a little bit of bad blood, but I can get past that.
So you get to Texas, first day on the job. Give us the run through.
Let me see. First day on the job. I learned this the hard way. So I walk into Maryland day one. I'm like yelling at guys for their catapult. And I'm like, that was not how I should have done it. Like me and a D lineman are about to get in like a fist fight because I'm like, put on your fucking catapult. He's like, who are you?
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I'm like, I'm gonna hang back a little bit. I'm just gonna like watch the operation. And what was really cool about this place is we have the sports science department. So there was an operation. And what they had built over the 3 years before I got there, like Beck has an operation. Like they are very sports science savvy. So it was really cool. So I was like, I'm just going to sit back and like watch what this looks like and see like, what can I change right away? The only thing I changed week one, I took the catapult receivers from like a hidden corner and I put them on the tripods in front where people could see them. So like the coaches all walk by, they go, what are those things? And I'm like, hi.
Elevators.
Nice.
Nice.
And, you know, it's funny because I tried to take that backed off approach because I didn't want to come in hot with like the football players or anything. And like, I try to learn everybody's name in a week. Like that's like my thing. Like all I did was pace around the room like a crazy person. I'm like, you're this guy, you're this guy, you're this guy. And they're all like, who is this girl? And the funny part about sports science, like when you're not a strength coach, you don't have to come in with like that personality.
Yeah.
And I think the players like didn't know who I was. They're like, what's a sports scientist? Like, who are you? Like, you're a girl. Like, hi, Miss Sam. And I'm like, please stop calling me that.
Yeah.
And then it was like 3 days later, like one of the kids isn't wearing his catapult. So like I snapped. I'm like, hey, go get your catapult. And like everybody turned and like was like, did she just yell? Like I get back in the weight room, the strength staff's like, hey, did you yell at that kid about his catapult? I'm like, what? Is that not what I'm supposed to do? Like, welcome, I'm here now. Like, right. I figured this out. Like, I've figured out the operation. Like, now we can roll. And that's been the cool part. Just like from there, it was a lot of education, like trying to teach. Like, I asked the kids, I'm like, do you guys know what that vest you're wearing is? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, like, let's have a talk with all the new guys. Like, we're going to talk about what catapult is, again, my 15-second elevator pitch. Like, this is what it is. This is what it does. This is what we measure. And it's really just been like trying to build those relationships. Like that's year one. It's build the relationships, have people trust you, whether that's coaching staff or athletic training staff or strength staff or players, and like then try to like see what processes you can improve. Or if you come into something that doesn't have anything, then it's like you just need basic tech operation first. Like people try to do too much too soon. It was like get catapult running how I want it, get the force plates running how I want it, get the Nordboard run, get all that stuff running how it needs to be running. We replaced a lot of hardware. We got the catapult unit swapped out, like all that kind of like little stuff. Like that's all what goes into year one, I think.
Show it, or tell us a little bit about your little nerd lab you have in the back of the weight room. She's the coolest
I love
office
my nerd lab.
ever.
I tell people that it's a video game simulator.
It looks, it's wild.
Yeah, it's just like neon green is my favorite color. So I have like a neon green floor. It's a dark motion capture, but it has like silver cages. Like it looks like a wrestling like.
You literally walk in there and you're like, who's the like how gaming's big? Like, it's for the guys, recruits, like do your Twitch thing and hang out back there.
I also have like a mechanical keyboard that changes color. So people are like, this is like what loser like lives back here. But that gets all the IT guys to like do your requests faster because they're like, you're such a loser.
Maybe I need to change
keyboard.
mine.
Like, you must be one of us.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, no, so it's an awesome lab, like to have like a Dari literally like in our weight room. I have all the tech I could want in there and we'll like bring things out. I like to like get things out in the open and like I can put things on the big TV out in the weight room. But yeah, no, so I have all my like all my nerd stuff in my lab.
I know you're a big questionnaire person. Did you bring questionnaires to Texas or what are your thoughts on questionnaires?
We actually, so I think there is a time and place for questionnaires. I don't think it's the first thing to do. I think it's something you do after you build some relationship with the guys. I have like, if any true sports scientist saw my RPE scale, they'd be like, this is scientifically invalid. It is colors, it is emojis, and it is like snarky like comments.
Sam comments.
Like, they're very Sam comments that like, okay, I'm a 5 today and it's something snarky and it's an emoji. So
are you being soft for, is it hella hard?
Basically, yeah. And so like, it's funny because at Maryland, I used to like hold up a sheet and they'd do this across the field because we didn't have a good way to like log it. I would hand record 20 of them.
Whoa.
But like it became a game because like these kids would come up and like half the time I wasn't paying attention to the number, but you pay attention to the day they tell you a different number. And you could tell just from how they're telling you. It doesn't, just because they said a 4 as opposed to a 7, you don't know, but they like, it just opens the door for these kids to come up and tell you things. So I'll do them 1 day a week in season, like a 1 day a week wellness survey. Like anything that you do every single day, it just...
that just goes by the wayside.
It does. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to like implementing any tech is you have to understand like what you're even going to do with that information. And a lot of times people take RPE or wellness and I agree, it's like a really easy thing to do. And if you have no tech, it's definitely like a great concept to use. But what are you going to do with that data every single day?
That's such a good point. Like so many people have all these different pieces or want to get something, but unless you're making actionable decisions, like why do you have the fancy unit or care about the questionnaire or whatever?
And that's like, I operate like I hate my technology. Like, that my tech has to like convince me that I need a reason to use it. Like I need a problem first. And I think the biggest issue that a lot of like, especially collegiate departments that are just buying things to buy things, they have the solution first. They're like, I want this tech because everybody has this tech. So let me buy this tech. Do you know what you're doing with it? Do you know what it measures? Do you know what it doesn't measure? Do you know how to implement it in a large group setting? What are you going to do with the data? Does it even fit into like the model of what you do? People have 1080s, and like how many people don't run like a speed-based program?
They sit in the corner and
but they buy them.
Yeah. Well, it's just
they roll them out for
like recruiting.
Well, I was going to say, like, how much of it is just like information seeking for the sake of
it's having a fancy car just for the sake of having a fancy car. It's not even for the information.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just it's to park it outside and be like, look, like it's LA. It's like living in LA. Like everyone jokes that you spend more on your car than your house in LA. Like that's what it is. Like you have all this cool stuff. It sits in the driveway and no one ever uses it. And I think like what I would love football programs to do is like, I like QC myself based on like my recruiting pitch. And if I say things in my recruiting pitch that I don't do, then it's not a very good recruiting pitch.
Yeah.
Scummy auto salesman.
Yeah. Like I like Beck and I always joke because like when we're doing our recruiting pitch, like we're rolling. Like we are just talking about like whatever happened to be on our mind that week. Like it is like, let's talk about this time because like this is what we're doing right now. And it's like, it's really cool to like give a recruiting pitch of like stuff that you do. Like I know that sounds like,
well, it goes back to authenticity in my mind.
Absolutely.
You know, just keeping it real.
Yeah.
You know, so you've mentioned that a couple times, like how you would sell all the equipment if you could. Yeah. So like how much of this stuff is necessary? Let me ask you a better question. If you could trim all the fat, which I'd imagine you probably have done quite a bit of. What are Sam Contorno's like top 3 or 4 things? Like these are the things that matter most in your opinion in terms of collecting data and things that you can actually take action on.
Yeah, I would get a set of lasers.
I think that's spot on.
Yeah. Like honestly,
understand it.
Catapult is incredibly important. Like everything I use, I find to be incredibly important because I found a role for it.
Sure.
It assists in some decision-making process.
There's no fluff left.
There's no fluff left. Like I probably have like the least amount of tech, like because I just don't care. Like, and if I really feel strongly about something, then I'll go out and get it. But like, I have everything I need. If you were like, hey, you're gonna train a football team with one thing, I'd get lasers and I'd see how fast they can do things. Like I'd probably train all kinds of crazy shit with the laser. Like I'd measure like you'd be like, what the fuck drill is she running and measuring? But like that to me, like time-based stuff on a football field, like that to me is the most important stuff. Like even catapult data, like it helps you figure out individual differences between guys, but you can like look at the periods. You can look at how much time you're on the field. You can, again, drill selection. Like you can somewhat figure out how to structure practice without catapult data.
Yeah.
Like, you know how many of the GAs count reps like for their guys? Like I could just get that information essentially. Like, yeah, you don't know how, like you
how
can't
fast or whatever, but
how
still
fast or the intent or all that
Yeah.
stuff. But you like, you could do it without it if you really, really, really wanted to. But I don't think you could do what you need to without figuring out if they're getting faster running or doing a specific drill. And again, that's not even football either. Like really, like football is the biggest test for football, which is impossible to quantify.
Right.
Complete and impossible to test, retest, which is fun. That makes my job really fun. Completely impossible. But I don't know, like that's all you need. Like, and so when people are like, do I need this and this? And it's like, no, like do you have a good handle on like what you're even trying to get adaptation wise? Ask like strength coaches, like what adaptation they're trying to get out of their training phase. And I'd say most football collegiate strength and conditioning coaches couldn't answer that question.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. And that's why you see so many different sports tech or training methodologies, or like they say they're doing speed today, but it's heavy back squat that day.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's not the same thing. I'm going to answer this for you. So most underrated sports tech will say laser.
Yes.
Because I think it drives intent, immediate feedback, like it's genius. You don't have a laser. Use a stopwatch, whatever.
Yeah.
What's the most overrated piece of sports tech that you've seen?
Ooh, that's a great question. Let me think about overrated sports techs without pissing.
Yeah.
How about we say like overrated if you're not or sports tech that people don't use appropriately.
I want to say, I like literally want to say all.
I know what you want. I know what you're gonna say.
I mean, like, if you ask me what drives me the most insane on any given day is definitely catapult, but I do see uses for it. Like I use that the most. like catapult has the most of my time. The amount my force plates break, I'd probably say they're up there with like my frustration levels. The Nord board. Okay, you want to talk about a hamstring test where if I put a guy with patella tendonitis on a hamstring test and he says my knee hurts, it's a bad hamstring test.
Yeah.
Sorry, Paul. Like it's a terrible hamstring test.
Yeah.
So like that, the Nordic hamstring test, the vaccine for all fucking hamstring tests.
Right. Yeah.
So for you,
There you go. You got me fired up.
Hey, let's go.
when guys come in to test with you, what are the top tests that you do now, and what are some of the ones that you've kind of gotten rid of because they don't really point you in a direction?
Yeah.
Great question, Zach.
Yeah. So I've tried
Trim with that.
I've tried every single force plate test, every single one. And like at the end of the day, the counter movement jump is going to give you the most of what you need. I'll do depth drop. I'll do some other things. I'll do some ISOs occasionally. But like at the end of the day, the counter movement jump is going to give you the information that essentially everything else is going to give you. And like doing like the squat jump is the most overrated test of all time. Like I have never done a squat jump that's been a squat jump. I don't know if you've tried that test. It's like you moved. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
I did not move. The Nordic, I do Nordic. Like I do test them periodically on Nordics, but I think that's one that like I drop that for monitoring. I do ISOs for all of my Nordboard stuff. Because again, if you get on a test and your knee fucking hurts, it's a bad hamstring.
I do with basketball, and most people's knees hurt. And so when you ask them to do that, they're not, it's like, your hamstring? Like, no, my freaking knee.
Yeah, it's like
oh, well, all right. We'll do a different one, I guess.
I went down, I think this was at Maryland. We had this one phase where like everybody's right hamstrings were like imbalanced. And I'm like, I went through this whole thing. I asked everyone what leg they started their 40 on. There was like no correlation. I was like, is it how we're like starting drills? I was like, this is the dumbest test ever. Like, and I think listen, it's a great concept. Like it's a great, whoever created it, like I understand why they created
if you're
it
healthy,
the way I
it's
did.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah, and like I appreciate the innovation behind that. I think it's hard to create assessment. So like that is not my world. Like I'm not innovative when it comes to like, oh, let me like test this. Like let me figure out how to get hamstring strength that way. I'm more likely to do some weird shit with lasers out on the field. But yeah, then you like use it in a actual applied setting with 120 athletes and you realize, okay, like there are more guys that can't do this for a knee than a hamstring. Bad test.
Yeah.
So sports science assessment. I'm going to finish your villain arc. So Connecticut High finally hires you back to be the lead strength conditioning coach.
It's cold there.
Let's say, you know, for all these high school strength coaches or maybe colleges that don't have resources, like what are some cheap assessments you could do on your end to kind of have access to, you know, changing your program in real time?
Yeah, no, I think like, I know this sounds like a crazy, you want to talk about Nordic, it sounds like a crazy answer, but like you could time how long it takes them to do the Nordic.
Ooh, I like that.
Like you're not going to get rate of force development, like peak forces or anything like that. But if a kid puts his feet up and falls on his face, okay, then like your hamstrings probably aren't that strong. Like rep count or like the skill guys, you know, the skill guys can hang on that forever. Not that that's an assessment of like whether or not you have strong hamstrings necessarily, but like that's a really easy one to do. Or like, I think, and I would love to do more education like with Texas high school coaches. I've had a few reach out and I have like a mini presentation.
Can you please, can I be on at that presentation?
Yes. Like on like how to do like practice periodization without catapult. Like it's not that hard. Like modify time.
Yeah.
Like that's what drives me insane.
Time on
like,
feet.
It's just time on feet, man. Like, and people don't realize that, and they go out and get all this tech, and they give it to the poor guy who has to run all the high school sports, and then they have this fancy GPS system just because it's Texas, and these high schools pay an insane amount of money. But if you went through and you gave every period an RPE, like you could figure out which ones they run, and you could figure out which ones they do a lot of change of direction, and like you could figure out how hard these periods are, like from an internal, external standpoint, whatever, and then see how long you're on the field for. Like you could periodize all of camp just using time. Yeah. And some like organization that we all know, like without really realizing that we know, because we've gotten so far from the coaching eye sometimes.
Totally. And just relying so much on the fucking information.
Yeah.
I'll let you ask another question, Tim, but you guys always play on Saturdays. Mm-hmm. So we just played Saturday. How do you structure the week?
Yeah.
Catapult wise, training load wise, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. So I look at my Saturday as my day one. That's the start of my week. 'Cause it's the only thing in the week that we're not sure of what's going to happen. Like every other day is really specific and we have a goal for each specific day. So like my Saturday is what I look at as like that's my X factor. So like my day has to start on Saturday, or my week has to start on Saturday, because say, a lot of people do like Sunday or Monday is day one, and then the game is the end of the week. But what if we have a really hard game? That might change how Monday and Tuesday operate.
Absolutely.
If we have a really easy game, that might change how Monday and Tuesday operate. So our Saturday, like for me, is the most important day to see what that actually looks like. And then I can structure my week out. And then we have a typical football week where we have Monday, relatively easy practice, Tuesday, Wednesday, hard practice, with some differences in drills that we run, Thursday back down, Friday off, Saturday play again. But I always look at that like Saturday, day one. And if guys are running a lot, we might modify what they do on Monday. If they're beat up, we might modify what they're doing on Monday. We might not get the speeds that we need out of them till like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, based on how that Saturday went. And I like to not guess, because that's a bad way to, we have a performance analyst on the sports science staff who like kind of helped me go through some of these opponents to see, okay, like what are some tendencies, what might our defensive guys do, and try to prep them for that next opponent. So like every week that Saturday happens and then that opponent dies, and it's like, all right, what do we have to prep the team for the next opponent?
So you change kind of their running through the week if you know you're going to play like a run dominant team or a passing dominant?
Yeah, I remember at Maryland we started this because we played against a running quarterback, and our D-line was running all over the place. And we used to do sprints with our skill and big skill guys, and they came up to me. They're like, hey, Sam, like, can we do the cool sprints this week? Because we had to run last week, and we were tired. And I'm like, yeah, shit. Like,
if you want to run, let's do it.
Yeah. So, when you play a running football team, your safeties and your linebackers are going to run more than you'd expect them to. If you play a passing team, your cornerbacks are going to run more than you'd expect them to. If you're playing a running quarterback, your whole line is going to run more than you expect them to. And they're the team, they're the position group that doesn't necessarily want to run more than they're expected to. And so just how do you like give drills here and there, or let the coaches pick what drills these guys are going to run, where you're going to get that adaptation?
That's cool. I didn't even think. I like how you start your week with a game. Like, that's so smart.
That's years.
Mondays when we start.
Just years of me not doing it that way and realizing. Then you like get yourself into like a pretzel, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how you guys do it. Like, football is easy. It's rinse and repeat. It's Groundhog's Day for me for 17 weeks. Like, I couldn't imagine a sport where you're playing on multiple days, because then it's like, where do you start? What game's important? What game's going to be hard? Like, that's a completely different puzzle. My puzzle's easy. We're always playing Saturday. Like, you're riding like the hormonal like wave throughout the week. It's a lot easier. That doesn't change. But there's like two philosophies, right? It's like, if you're going to play a hard team, do you take it easy the week before? If you're playing a hard team, do you like go hard the week before? And so like, I feel like I spent like years going back and forth on like my philosophy on that, and just putting that Saturday first, that at least gives me the option to like factor that in somewhat, and then start attacking the next opponent once we get past that recovery period.
That's awesome.
You were talking about throughout the ebb and flow of the course of the week, and like, you know, the periodization of practice, which is another question I want to ask you about. But you were talking about making sure guys hit the speeds that they need to hit. Mm-hmm. So we are in a field where the prevailing opinion for most of the time I've been alive on this earth is we don't sprint because you might pull a hamstring, or they get it in practice. So sprinting and making sure guys get hit at or near max velocity throughout the course of the week is actually relatively new in terms of it being widely accepted.
Yeah.
Not that coaches haven't been doing it for a long time, but it hasn't been the standard, I should say, for as long as people might assume. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like at Texas, and how you monitor, track, and then like, you know, maybe position by position, what you're looking for, and just get into the weeds a bit?
Yeah. So I think the really interesting part of that is like the fitness fatigue model. Like, that's the most basic concept in strength and conditioning, says someone who has no degrees in strength and conditioning. And like, we forget that. And it's like, you're preparing them to play a game. That doesn't mean that they sit all week and then go play this game and are successful playing this game. Like, it's not just sprinting. Like, you need to expose them to all the things that they're going to see going into that game, whether it's change of direction, whether it's a percentage of total volume, whether it's a speed. Like, they have to hit all those qualities and all those skills. Like, fuck qualities. Like, our quarterback needs to throw the routes that he's gonna
straight up.
You have to like go through the playbook X amount of time. I think our job as sports scientists are just to make sure they go through the playbook at the intensities needed to handle what they handle when they get to Saturday. And like, we forget that. Like, I don't know why. To your point, it's only been the last few years. Now every team has top off runs, and every NFL program is doing this, and every college program is doing this. And like, that's probably the number one question I get asked when people call me, like, where do we put that? So like, it's great to see that like happening in the field now, but it's just like how do you think they maintain that quality? Like,
if
exposing
fucking dude. Yeah.
Again, right? Like, if you don't like think about how many times during the week they go through a play. You go through it in meetings, you go through it in walkthrough, you go through it in group, you go through it in teach, you go through it in 7-on-7, you go through it in like they have to do all those at varying intensities just to get to like the game rep. So like, why would you think that like you could not sprint all week in varying intensities and then go sprint in a football game?
And I think people who like have had, you know, like when we used to sprint at high velocities, guys got hurt, and it's like,
we're doing it in the summer.
Well, yeah, that too. But like, what context, like how they do it in the practice is the beginning of practice, end of practice. Like, are we doing around certain types of drills can dictate if you have a higher chance of popping.
Are you doing it the day after the game?
Correct.
Yeah, and like I want to have a guy sprint with me as little as possible. I want them to get all of their speed development in football. Like I want them to chase a wide receiver. I want them to run a long route. I want them to get it on kickoff. Like I don't want it to be with me because that's not specific to anything. No. Like I want them to figure out how to get it during the week. And then if there's something we have to clean up and touch later in the week because they haven't hit it, great, we can do that. But like that goes back to teaching too. Like we teach it. I call it holy shit speed. Like you don't want to hit holy shit speed in a game, but you need to be prepared to hit it. And that's when you PR because you are chasing something because your play exploded.
You're playing your ass off.
Yeah, because all those reps at walkthrough didn't help and you blew your coverage and you are chasing a receiver down the field and you PR'd. So that is a holy shit moment.
Well, nothing in practice can mimic 120,000 people screaming at you.
No, absolutely.
You know what I mean? No matter what you guys do at practice, like the game is the biggest stimulus.
Absolutely. And you treat that Saturday like that. You know that you're going to hit 120%.
Yeah.
If you haven't hit 70%,
good luck.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
If you're in the 90s somewhere, you're going to be better prepared for that. And so I want them to do it in football. Like I want them to not do it with me. Again, if they have to, they have to. But if we teach them that that's what we need from them, then they feel that, and then that's also the standard. Then they know how to run that. Then they know how to run that too.
See, that's awesome.
It's crazy. That's like such a like.
That's the proper use of sports science.
Yeah,
Sam. Well done.
Run faster in practice. Don't bother me.
Well, it's crazy. That's so like.
And they go, Sam, how fast did I run? How fast was that? 80? Was that 92? I'm like, you ran 10 yards. You fuck. Like that was not.
So let me ask you, but in terms of like building buy-in, and you talked about educating guys.
Yeah.
How much of it do you make it? Does that competitive piece sell itself?
All they care about.
Yeah, because I know if me and Zach are running routes, which no one wants to see, but we're doing that. Like I want to know I'm running faster than Zach.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Do you post all their scores?
Everything.
That's
fuck yes, dude.
If I posted,
I want to go practice.
If you posted, you could have these kids be like, hey, whoever eats their food fastest is going to get on the board as number one. Like these kids will fucking race. Like they will race for everything. Stanford, we had them do this concentration grid where they had to find numbers on a piece of paper. And these kids are like speeding through it. Like I just like asked them to run through a wall. But like if they win at the end, that is all these kids care about is winning. And you have to know that. And so like, I want them to argue over their Nordboard scores. I want them to argue about who ran the fastest.
Hell yeah.
I'll be collecting catapults at the end of a run. It's like, Sam, what I run? I'm like, I don't know. I can't memorize 86 different speeds. Like, you'll see it tomorrow.
Well, that's why you guys are a winning program, though, because I feel like if you have things like that and athletes don't care where their name is on the chart, then you're like, we're full losers.
Not good.
Yeah.
And that is... I don't know how that is with like other sports, but that is Texas high school football.
Yeah.
These kids were raised to play football. Like they are competitive. And like when they step like in the lines, like they are different kids than when they're in the weight room, when they're outside. Like something's different about football here, which I think is what like makes it so cool.
Yeah.
And so you get these kids that are ultra football competitive. So like any way to like let them talk shit to each other. Like, that's all I do. I just assist in them talking shit to each other.
Tim ran a little bit quicker than you last rep, but he's probably faster than you. It's fine.
Yeah, it's probably not a big deal.
You think I'm not sitting at that table?
You do want to play, right?
Every single kid that walks by, I'm like, oh yeah, so you want to be second fastest today? Like, that's cool. That's great. Okay. I guess we'll be second. Awesome.
Silver medals are in my car.
Instigator.
Awesome. Yep.
All day long.
Or just poke. Give me like a megaphone and just let me like talk shit the whole time.
So for you coming up, we talked about, underdog with everything. What advice would you give, an up and comer that wants to be the next Sam?
Don't do it.
I knew you were going to say that.
Don't.
You won't make it. It's too hard. It's too stressful. It's only going to get harder. You start as an intern and you do the little like bitch tasks that are no one wants to do them. But then you start to get responsibilities, and then you still have to do the little bitch tasks most of the time. And there's more stress and there's more pressure, and you don't like how people speak to you, and you don't like the stuff that you have to do, and you don't like the problems that you have to solve, and it gets endlessly harder. And that is what I tell people. Don't do it, because if I'm sitting there and I'm telling you that this is a terrible career and you're not going to sleep and you're not going to see your family and you're going to have to sacrifice things, and they look at me and they go, I still want to do this, then you're the right person to be in this field.
100%. I was about to say, I was listening to you say that, and I'm like, there's Sam Contorno 2.0 somewhere. And she's
pissed because I said
she's gonna be like, no, fuck her.
Yeah,
I'm doing it. And then perfect.
Yeah,
the circle of life continues.
My first boss sat us down in a room. He goes, this is the dumbest thing you guys could have ever done in your life. I'll quit. And I walked out of that. I'm like, this is the best.
I want to do it. You're kind of like, both of us. If you really want me to do something, just tell me I can't.
Yes.
If you can't take the trash out or put your clothes away.
Yeah, right. Yes, I can, dude. Yeah. I'll fucking do it better than you idiot.
Shut up. I'll do all my laundry today.
I love also the shift in your career. So like you have all of this experience as a legit fucking strength coach, and then transitioning into the sports science role. Can you talk about just how invaluable I can imagine having that strength coach experience, being able to communicate to some of these meatheads?
Yeah, I'm just coaching. Like all I'm doing, I'm just coaching something different. Like, it's funny, I come from a family of teachers, and I was like, I will never be a fucking teacher.
Oh,
like, I will never do that. And I am a teacher. Like, that is what I do.
It makes a little more sense, though. Here we go.
Snarky teaching. Like, it's just teaching with like a raised volume. Like, so I feel like nothing has changed. I still operate like I'm a strength coach, but I'm just coaching something different now. I'm not teaching you how to bench, squat, and clean. I'm teaching you what your catapult numbers mean, and I'm demanding a standard from you just from something different. And I think that's where you have sports science departments where the sports scientist is so far removed from, like, their offices might not even be in the weight room.
Well, like, Sam lifts, for all you people that don't know. Like, she's really strong.
I try to lift.
Yeah, whatever. Classic Olympic weightlifter. Like,
I just want to be known.
It is totally only
they're always
do
like
that
because we fail like
constantly. It's never good enough.
It's never good.
She'll post her videos, and she's like, "This is a crappy clean." I was like, "I can't clean that."
To be honest, I just want to be known as the girl who fails lifts on Instagram. Like, that is what I hope my legacy is.
That's good.
Yeah,
I think that does help kind of bridge the gap. And especially talking with the guys, like, certain times when you want them sore or whatever, you can be like, I know why you're sore. You guys did heavy RDLs the other day, and you actually can talk the language, which is so valuable. I
also think that, like, that's so big as a strength coach to, like, it sounds cheesy, but like, you need to be trying to be excellent at something. Like, I think the boys, especially, I guess maybe as a female, like, too, like, the boys need to know that, like, I am trying to be great at something just like they are. So that way, like, if I'm coaching them on it, like, they see me doing the same thing. Like, I run at like 5 a.m. every morning, and it's for everybody else's safety, like, not for my conditioning. But like, they're always like, why are you running so early? And it's like, well, because I'm mad, and because, like, I'm trying to be great at something. So they see you sacrifice, like, your sleep, or they see you sacrifice something, or they see, like, man, like, it sounds so dumb, but like, like, previous years, like, I've seen what coaches eat, like, during camp, because you get like all this food, you're just like stuffing your face.
You're not playing,
like,
man.
And it's like we're bad examples for these kids. Like, we're gonna be like, I don't eat that cookie, but like, here I am, like, housing cookies.
Literally.
Like, I don't know. Like, we're still.
I think it's like, you have to, and everyone's going to argue, like, should strength coaches look like they train or whatever? I feel like you need to look like you do something.
Or just like if you're fit, that just means you have another aspect of your life under control.
Correct.
And so like you're always gonna at least come across like you've mastered the discipline in that area. But like as long as you're pursuing excellence in something, like whether it's weightlifting, whether it's running, whether it's so many people are going back to look at their doctorates. Like shit's not fun either. But like I think as long as you're like pursuing excellence in something. It's easy to ask kids to make sacrifices when you're also making sacrifices. But if you're not, like, then how do you ask these kids to do that?
Well, it's tough, and you catch yourself every day. You got to get uncomfortable, put yourself in tough situations, and then it's like, oh shit, am I doing that? Am I getting myself uncomfortable, putting myself in tough situations? And if you're not, I don't know about you, but I feel like a fraud if I'm doing it.
Absolutely. I'll go do like their summer runs, and I, it takes me triple the time to complete
Still
it.
got done.
They do, but like I feel like you have to do it. So then when they're like, it's hard, it's like, yo, I fucking did it.
I just did it. No.
Yeah.
I jump in, like, the college football guys that I have in now, like I jumped in and did the workout with them the other day. I'm grateful that I can still do that and just not completely embarrass myself.
Yeah.
But like I'm in there and I'm shit talking them and I'm telling him he's too slow and he's not going to beat me in the race.
Amazing.
And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And first of all, it's fun, but like in terms of like, and I'm not thinking about it this when I'm doing it. I'm doing it because it's a good time.
Yeah.
But like there's a level of buy-in and it's like, oh, to your point, it's like, I don't need a therapist to have gone through what I've gone through for me to trust and rely that what they're saying is good information. That's part of growing up.
Yeah.
But as an 18, 19, and 20-year-old, if I've got someone who's walking the walk and doing the thing, it means more to me.
Yeah.
As I get older and I age and I mature, I can glean wisdom from someone who hasn't necessarily done it. But in that demographic in particular,
they're not there yet with their maturity.
I need to see you. I need to know. You know what I mean?
Our population never changes age. So.
Right.
We just get older.
Yeah, exactly. Can I want to circle back to the strength coach to scientist thing. All right. So you're a strength coach. There are things that are important to you, principles you have, training philosophies. You get more acclimated and accustomed, and you have a greater understanding about the science about what works and what's important. So what about your training philosophy has changed over the course of your villain arc?
Yeah. So I try to prove myself wrong every single day. Like the day I wake up and I'm like, shit, everything that I ever knew was wrong will be the best day of my life. That's my goal. Like I want to be wrong about what I believed always. And I'm like disappointed when like I'm not. And so I feel like I'd say the biggest thing over the years is like I've really like stopped thinking about things in terms of like exercises or drills, and I think about things in terms of adaptation. Like what adaptation am I trying to get from this? But like I hope that one day someone goes, that's the wrong way to think about it. We found that
there's something new and better.
And I'd be like, that's awesome. I will gladly throw out whatever I've done. And like if someone finds the better way to do it, like I don't care what that way is. Like I'll do it that way. Like I hope I'm like, that wasn't it. Let's move on to what it is. Cause like every year when I like kind of like look back at my program, if I didn't change anything, like I didn't grow at all.
Yeah.
Then that's a failure. If everything stays the same year to year, I think I failed as a professional. Like I want to go back and reassess and be like, I like this test better than this test, or I like how this worked better than this worked, or like, if what do they say? Like you could write the same training program and do that for 20 years, you could write 20 different training programs.
Yeah.
And so, I want to be wrong.
There's a quote, Zach's probably heard me say it 10,000 times now, so I'm going to apologize in advance. But I don't want to be right. I want to get it right.
Yeah. Okay.
And
the idea.
But in the beginning of my career, I wanted to learn the information so that I could be right. And then much like you were talking about, it's like, oh, like being right is not where it's at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I need to be open to new information so that I can get it right for this particular set of circumstances, individual qualities, whatever, as opposed to being so concerned about being like smart or having the answer.
As a Northeastern Italian female, like I want to be right all the
time.
Like, don't get me wrong. I always want to be right, but I'm okay being wrong.
Yes.
What's something like in your past, like that you thought was like dead set true, And then the more you've looked into things, you're like, actually, I don't think I'm as right as I thought I was.
Can I
training wise?
Not give the Corey Schlesinger answer? Like, back squat is my favorite exercise of all time. So this is, maybe I'll ask you guys this question. Yeah. So if you're a head football strength and conditioning coach, what is the one exercise that you keep in your program? Like, regardless of the fact that you know it doesn't work. Like, everyone gets an ego exercise. Like, if I had a football program tomorrow, I'm making the whole football team clean. Does clean do anything? Absolutely fucking not. And if you gave me a full football program, I'd never clean, but I'm going to clean because it's fun.
Yeah.
Because
it's
clean
fucking
day
sick
is fun.
and everyone gets hyped, dude. That's why we do it.
And I understand that, like, there's better ways to get rate of force development. Like, I'd rather snatch and clean pull and hex bar and all that stuff. I don't want to teach the clean. I think it's so much harder to do than a snatch. All my linebackers' wrists and fingers are fucked up. Like, it's a terrible football exercise. But God damn it, max clean day is so much fun.
Yeah.
And so
Sam,
I don't care.
You
That's
just
my ego
spoke
exercise.
directly to my heart, and that was my answer, and you gave every reason why it's my answer. That was so spot on for me. Zach, your turn.
Yeah, I would say it's one of those things, like, we teach our athletes how to clean, and part of it is, like, I do see value in it, and I do get there's other ways to get it. But if kids can pick it up quick, we do it, and the kids that don't, you don't get to. And our kids, I think they find joy in it because it is hype. It is more complicated than, like, pick it up, set it down.
Yeah.
But some of the kids, like, who just can't do it or don't want to learn it, then it's like, I'm not going to put you into a box.
But that's the smart piece with that is, like, I think, you know, you've seen all the football videos of kids cleaning. Like, there are programs where, like, I don't care if you have 3 broken wrists. Figure out how to clean them.
Yeah, pick it up, son.
Yeah. Like, here's some straps. We'll spot your elbows.
Yeah.
Right.
This will go really well. There's no way this could go wrong.
Actually, and also kind of awesome at certain times in your life, but maybe not as a coach. But
totally. I think like for a lot of us, it probably came down to, like, lifting heavy.
Yeah.
And because, like, for slow people or unathletic people, like, getting stronger is the best way to get more athletic because you're just weak, not very gifted. So the force end of things is probably where you should put everything in. But when you see these higher level athletes, it's like, maybe the compressive strategy, like, isn't the best.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, it's up to you to implement it different, I guess.
Yeah. I think the other one, if I had to, like, think about one more thing that, like, I've changed my thought on, like, weight room KPI is just, like, they don't do it for me. Like, I think it's funny too, because even when I started at Stanford, like, I was so green. Like, I remember being like, why is this rep 16 seconds? And, like, how did you get that? And, like, I remember knowing literally nothing. And, like, you feel like an idiot in this field for a long time. Like, it takes you a few years to, like, you realize that you don't know anything. You know, for a while you're like, why don't I know this? Like, I'm just dumb. And then you're like, oh, we're all just dumb. And no one knows anything.
You go through knowing nothing to you know everything to then realizing you know nothing.
Yes, that curve,
Exactly.
whatever it's called, the like the pit of doom or
pit of doom.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever it is. That's how it feels for sure. But I'd say that, like, I think, you know, the most important stuff, especially in a field-based sport, happens on the field. And, like, how can I better quantify football? Like, that's the question that I ask myself every day. It's not like, how can I, like, optimize loading strategies in the weight room for what I want? It's how can I test qualities on the field? And how can I basically quantify football?
Yeah.
Which we don't know.
I think the toughest thing is, like, strength coaches, like, the easiest way for a person that doesn't really know what I do to show that I did a great job is, hey, coach, everyone went up 50 pounds on their cleans and 100 pounds on their squat.
Yeah.
I'm good at my job. And the coach is like, I don't know really much about what you did, but you made the guys stronger. It's called a strength coach.
Yeah.
You're good at your job. Here's a raise.
Okay. What's your ideal title? If we could change, why am I asking you guys?
Performance coach.
No, this is great. By all means,
Yeah.
we get sick and tired of asking the questions.
I don't really like strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
I get it. That's what we do. But I feel like we are, like, periodization experts.
I like that.
Just because I think a lot of coaches, we talked about this before, they don't really know what we do. They just think you make people bigger, faster, stronger.
Yeah.
But we have this such big knowledge of, like, how to periodize a practice or a week so you can actually perform on game day.
Yeah.
And too many coaches don't see us like that. They just see us as, like, that's your room, get them stronger, I'll take care of the rest. But until you have a conversation with, hey, if we structure practice this way, we can get every drill you want done just in a different order.
Yeah.
We'll probably get better outcomes.
Yeah. We're like stress managers.
Stress
like
management.
The ultimate stress managers. especially in college, right? We're just putting out fires all day of all the other shit that these kids have to deal with.
Totally. So you're Texas sports science, stress manager, performance coach.
I like stress manager. I feel like that would like indicate how many gray hairs I have.
Hey, could be worse. Could be worse.
I'm on the way, buddy. I'm right behind.
I got a good
you now.
razor company.
Thank you. Yeah, we need shout out
to
razor company.
to Gillette.
Yeah, we need a razor sponsor.
I just need like a hair, like a ponytail like sponsor to understand that like there are humans in football that have long hair. Like someone send me like some free hair ties.
We'll talk to our people.
Yeah,
we might know.
I really like you. You're a good coach, and see what I can talk my scrunchy hook up.
All right, hey, look. So you do rant and rave, and then I'll do 3 things.
She's gonna crush rant. So we do a little segment rant and rave, and this is just gonna be about sports science. I need you to go on a big rant about sports science, just whatever on your mind, and then a rave.
So and not like that kind of rave.
Yeah.
I mean, like
we're out of college now.
Yeah.
I'm such an EDM girl. Like my life is.
Listen, I did my time.
That's my lifting playlist. Yeah. When did you guys graduate? Like the 2012?
I was 09.
The Skrillex era. Yeah.
Yeah, I was 09.
Yeah.
I was the wave.
Yeah. Anyway, bass nectar, like that was cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I
put that
Many
on.
brain
I
cells
put that
are
on
left
now,
behind.
and the boys are like, "Ew!" Like, I'm like,
yeah. This is if you had been there, you would have felt differently.
I love that. Okay, what's a good? Let me think of like where I want to go with this rant because there are so many.
Like you pull up Twitter, that's a stupid freaking tweet about sports science, and you're like, they got it all wrong.
Okay, so I think the biggest frustration in sports science right now is this battle of applied sports scientists versus like lab sports scientists.
Oh,
right?
we're
Like,
getting into the
you have
scientist
like
weeds. Let's
you
go.
have like the S or not at the end of sports. Are you a sports scientist or are you a sports scientist?
Ooh.
And it's so funny because a lot of us got into sports science from strength and conditioning. And then there are people who are getting into sports science from research. And you're seeing like a battle of like nerd egos between those people because this is my biggest thing with sports science. People care about the technology they have. People care how many 1080s they have. They care about how many force plates they have. They care about how many tests they run. They care about, what cool biomechanics thing can you put on, social media? What Nordboard buckets do you do? They do all this shit. Can you talk to your football coach and make eye contact with him and not vomit? Like that is, I think, the most important thing is the soft skills when it comes to sports science. Because you could run all of the cool tests in the world. You could have all the cool data. And if you literally cannot translate that information to your coaching staff, like who gives a shit that you're there? All you're doing is wasting time. And so like we need to stop with this like research battle versus like applied battle. Like where the applied sports scientists aren't good sports scientists because they were just strength coaches who like clicked around in Excel.
Positions open. You want to take
yeah, because or like you were the nerdiest strength coach on staff, and like, you know what, Sam, you take this because no one else wants to deal with it. And like we ignore the soft skills. We ignore that you need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to build buy-in. You need to be able to have like conversations with your athletic trainer to collaborate. And without that communication, your whole thing falls apart. But we are so like, what do you Z-score or T-score or like which standard deviation do you flag? It's like that's not what matters. It's like, can you take whatever information you have and make it translatable? Because if you can't, that shit doesn't matter.
God,
if you have all the equipment, it just means you have better boosters than another school.
That's all it means. Like, my favorite quote of all time, David Shaw, analytics don't matter, football matters. Because at the end of the day, like that's what matters, our sport matters. And if you cannot translate that shit, it don't matter.
I heard a good quote. Hootie says it. Her coach that she works for says, your data doesn't match my eye.
Love that.
Same
and
kind of thing.
That's, he's been coaching for 40 years and shout out Connecticut, best basketball state in the entire country. So,
And then a rave, what's something you really like that you see happening in sports science?
I love that even if coaches have no idea what they're talking about, they're all talking about sports science. You see snippets of it on like NFL films where they're talking about load management. I know that's like the joke in basketball, right? Poor New York Knicks.
Say that.
Like, that's all. I've heard the word load management for the last, 2 weeks in that series. Like people are talking about that now. People are talking about the speeds that guys are running. Like, I don't care what tech you're using or like what, that you're getting speeds from this or that or whatever. Like I like that people are talking about it because people are talking about that more than squat numbers or bench press numbers or all that stuff. So you're seeing this like this intro to it in NFL and NBA and, baseball. And I think the more you talk about it, the more that becomes the norm. And then people stop asking you what your kids squat. They start asking you how fast they run or how fast they do this drill. That's way more applicable to the sport.
Amen.
Sam, this next segment is brought to you by Squat Wedgies, official sponsor of the Coach 'em Up podcast.
That's great.
This segment is called Three Things. So if there are three things that you could say to anyone who wants to do what you're doing right now, what would those three things be? How would they get to where you're at?
You have to be willing to watch a lot of horrifying YouTube videos on how to database things. Like, you have to learn how to database. That's like number one. Everyone wants to avoid it. Everyone wants to just like, oh, I'm just gonna do it in Excel. I'm just gonna do that, whatever. Like, whatever way you want to figure out how to do it, you have to figure out how to organize data. That's number one. And it's so boring and it's so unsexy, and they don't teach it in any program right now. So you're gonna have to Google it. But you know what? Everything about tech is on Google. You could Google everything. So like, you'll be just fine. That's number one. Number two, you have to be hands-on, and you have to, like, whether it's an internship or whatever it is, you have to use a force plate, break a force plate, use the lasers, break the lasers. Like, you have to get your hands on technology. And the last one is you just have to be absolutely willing to be wrong all the time, because you're going to try stuff and it's going to go terribly and you're going to be horribly embarrassed and everyone's going to think you're a moron. But if you do that enough times, eventually it works out. So what was that?
Databasing.
Boring databasing project. Break everything and be wrong all the time.
God,
I love it.
that was a really elite.
That was like a rant
concise,
too.
clear
Yeah.
answer. That was wonderful. That segment was brought to you by Squat Wedgies. Sam, you actually absolutely murdered it. Very well done. We've got one more segment. You want to do unsolicited advice?
So unsolicited advice. You're walking through campus, see some, kid that looks like they're lost, first day of school. What's some piece of advice you would give them?
And it could be about
lean
anything.
over anything.
Just completely unsolicited. You're like, hey, kid.
Don't give a single fuck what anybody thinks about you.
Let's go.
Oh, I like
Not
that.
one. Don't care. No one cares. Don't care. Just, you look confused, sir. Continue on with your day.
That's been a correct.
Don't ask me for directions.
Excuse me, young man. Don't give a fuck about what anyone thinks about
Nope,
you.
don't.
Anyway, welcome to Austin.
That seems on par for Austin.
That's actually pretty.
Yeah.
It does actually. Sam, I had so much fun
That's so
today.
much fun.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was awesome.
Thanks
This
for
time
coming on.
absolutely
This is great.
flew by. Where can people find you?
I am missing lifts on Instagram. That is probably where you'll see some of my, I wouldn't say content because it's not content, but I'm the most active on that. You could watch me repost things from Texas football on my Twitter if you so choose. It is my name, Sam Contorno. Was that a good sell for myself? That's
Yeah.
it. That's all.
You
I got.
nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's not a sales. Sales are not her thing.
not a
She's too
salesman.
authentic for that shit.
No.
All right,
Buy this fucking product.
Sam. Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Guys, everyone listening, everyone watching, we thank you. We love you guys. Thank you for your support. And we'll see you next time.